Welcome to another 2024 presidential election prediction. Today, folks, we're going to be centering on the future bronze medalist for this election, RFK. Now, why am I saying that? Well, I did a big video on this 2 months ago, and things have recently changed for, I would say, the worse in the most platonic sense, just a derision of entertainment from the sector called the runner-ups. Okay, we have 5 people in this race: Cornel West, Jill Stein, RFK, Trump, and Biden. And while it seems like the third parties are having more excitement than they usually have, they have totally have rescinded from the peak. And so we're really going to look at the decline of RFK and kind of see where the election lies now. Now, just for starters, when you look at the news coverage, RFK is not really a part of this factor. And so for a guy who's behind by God knows how much, it's really incumbent upon you to be in the news, whether that be positive or negative. Show a pulse, please. Now, of course, he's not. In fact, he's copping a plea, probably being annoyed that he's being denied Secret Service detail, which again does not really it doesn't really bride or really marry itself to enthusiasm, is what I rather say. Now, granted, we do have some results here for Donald Trump versus Biden alone. You can see mano a mano. In fact, the guy who wants to deport the hombres is leading Biden by about 0.5%, which in and of itself is way better than June 6th of 2020, by the way, folks. But let's not get too into the weeds about the winners. Let's talk about a guy who's going to lose. RFK is over here at a measly 9.1. I'm being a D-bag about it because you can see how his support has fallen, which either means that he's not getting attention because he is boring, or maybe there's some grand conspiracy against the golden child with a silver spoon in his mouth. And guess what? When we look at it one way, you can guarantee that RFK has been fumbling, because in the other scenario I was describing earlier, you can totally see that as people got to know him a little bit more, it's not so much, oh my God, I have a vague recognizance of the Kennedys from grade school, growing up. And so RFK, oh my God. And that support that was at 17% at the peak 6 months ago in December, you'll notice that it's all the way down to 9.1, and it's a common trend, okay? So it's meaning to say that while the election gets closer for Trump and Biden, as you can see the polling, in a certain way, you can see that Kennedy is falling off, and these 4th and 5th tertiary candidates are also just kind of holding the line at 2, 1, 3%, irrelevant factors in the race, in my opinion. That being said, of course, Kennedy is on the downslope, and that's completely insured. If I'm the prosecutor, I have enough evidence to really convict a ham sandwich, because when it comes to RFK, even his favorability isn't looking quite hot. In fact, you look at it, and it's at 42% unfavorable to 35% favorable. Now, that is not great because, again, you are down by God knows how many points. Again, we're talking about having a scintilla of a chance to really have an installation of fear towards the primary candidates to say, hey, these third-party guys are for real this time, and it seems like it's not the case. And so you see that, again, Kennedy's polling at 9.1, and it's pretty evident that his support was actually pretty nominally all right months ago. In fact, when he peaked in the polling aggregates, he had a positive rating of 5%. Now it's down to negative 6 to 7%. It's a disgusting fact, and I think a lot of the supporters of him will say, well, you know what? He's still less unfavorable than Joe Biden and Donald Trump. And you know what? I can concede that. The problem is that the support is a lot more placid. In fact, it's a lot more, I would say, just not really important. These people will not come out to vote for him. And it's really evident that, whereas with Donald Trump and Biden, they at least have some sort of dilemma where the voter has to say, damn it, I need to pick the shiniest of the two turds. Whereas Kennedy is not even a viable option, okay? So that's really the problem here. So he has been downtrending for months now in favorability, which coalesces with the downtrend in the polling for him. And so it all mathematically checks out. Also, 2 major arguments is that people that were in the know said, you know what, RFK might be polling at damn near 20% as of December. But truth is that towards the election, people will have to pick a plantation to work on, and they're either going for Joe Biden or they're going to go for Donald Trump. And it seems like that it's been completely held up and vindicated because it's very clear to me that while the guy, Trump or Biden in this case, are kind of old, but Kennedy is also falling into that problem too. And when it comes to, again, public speaking, Biden sucks and Trump is derisive. But that being said, Kennedy is awful too. Again, I coined the term, and it's a brilliant one. It's called the audio version of a etch and sketch. It's damn near contagious. I'm over here stuttering over my words, but you can see how bad it is. And so right now I can tell you that these states that are probably going one way over the other are not going to change on the basis of RFK. Certain third party candidates could have a specific appeal, like Evan McMullen in 2016 did in a place like Utah, or in a place like Minnesota when it came to Jesse Ventura in the past. You could have said if he ran third party, let's say in 2000, there would have been a little bit of a trickle of support going one way, more noticeable than what Gary Johnson put up in 2016, who, again, was a pretty big third-party candidate, all things considered. So RFK right now is looking to be about Ralph Nader tier insofar as presidential election outcome and impact, which is really pathetic when you think about it, because the guy's selling you on a bill of goods that makes you think that he might win if you have an IQ under 110. The truth is that he does not stand a single chance. That being said, of course, we're going to go ahead and cover this if it were to go down today, that election being. Given the state of the race as we see it today, I think we can pretty confidently put certain states away for now. So right now, this is the map. Also, by the way, I think Biden will win New Hampshire. It just looks that way. The funding, you look at it, again, this is all nerd stuff, but in the esoteric sense, a person like Trump does not really have this appeal that viscerally works alongside the demography of New Hampshire. Okay, these are very much northeastern white people, and they tend not to like the bombastic populism espoused by Trump, damn near towards nationalism, which again is not a popular motif for a lot of these niche white people. Again, suburbs are different, but the New England types are suburbanites that are totally not disposed to being Republican. They're in fact more like George Bush types, which is a pathetic thing to say. Speaking of which, Ralph Nader, who also was a niche candidate, third party that is, for the Green Party, I believe, in 2000, I also could have been pointed out as maybe being a spoiler in New Hampshire and being actually a fixture that might have tilted the results of that election. That being said, Trump is poised to win by over 2%, which is to say that this slight change in the vote is not going to matter when it comes to third parties, in my opinion. Now, moving on, we do have Arizona, which does have a 5.6 lead for Donald Trump over Biden. Again, Kennedy pulling at 8.3. So again, the average for Kennedy is 9.1. So he's down at 8.3, which is depressing for him to say the least. And again, Arizona ought to be a place that should do well for him. He in fact picked Nicole Shanahan, who had a ton of money, is from Silicon Valley, could totally easily invest that money in the state over, and yet there has been a negative attribution to Kennedy's status in the race. If you look at prior polling, he was in double digits at least for certain parts. Now he's at the lowest he's ever been. Somewhat sad and pathetic, but that being said, we're going to have this red. Sorry. Okay, there you go. Nevada is another state I'm pretty confident in. In fact, we can look at it right now. If it's a 1v1, you see Trump winning by 5.3. Whereas if you look in 2024, if it were a 5-man race, well, with Stein. Okay, but anyway, 6.8. And so his lead expands. In fact, RFK is doing a little bit better here than the national average. You can maybe attribute that to maybe a predisposed demography in Vegas being full of these gambling addicts that are really hoping that they can pay for their debt if they get RFK to win. Who knows how these polls are being done in Nevada, but the truth is that RFK does not stand a chance there either. That being said, we do have some more supporters of his that we need to check in on, which is going to be in the state of North Carolina, which I believe is going to be really safely Trump. As you can see, 5.3 in a 1v1. You go to 24 and you put 5 people in that race, and then Trump's lead goes up to 8, which is crazy, folks. In fact, you can see that Kennedy again underperforms his national average. So again, for a guy who does not have a looming house arrest like Trump might have to, or otherwise is like Biden with dementia, he has full capacity to go campaign in the swing states and have an outside support base in the swing states where it probably matters. In fact, he's just nationalizing the campaign. And you can see in the swing states thus far, he's been underperforming in 2 out of the 3, with the notable exception of Nevada. Now, you can see North Carolina, his support has never been really strong. So maybe there is an honest uptick for RFK here. Not that it matters at all. But that being said, let's keep going to the next state, which is Georgia. You look at Georgia and Trump is leading it by about 5 percentage points, which is really remarkable compared to 2020. That being said, the lead expands to about 6 percentage points with RFK. And again, Kennedy, his support is only 7.7%. It's insane to me why this is even the case. So he's completely fallen off. In fact, when you visually just imagine the separation between the candidates, look at how close Kennedy is in proximity file size wise in the picture than is than he is to Biden or to Trump. Again, this is a good visual representation of how third place is really meaning nothing right now. Whereas at least in December, you could have said, okay, maybe Biden at 32%, Kennedy at 21%. You can make a case for that. But now this is not even close. That being said, when we chart the support for Kennedy, you'll notice that he's been pretty flat at about 6-7% points. So it's not really a big deal either way, like I said. This is where the video might get a little more spicy. You can see that Trump is just barely winning in the Wisconsin polling. Now, again, this Quinnipiac poll that has, horrible results for Trump. In fact, it has Trump losing by 6, is completely out of line with all the other polls. Which is to say that it's ruining the aggregate. If anything, the aggregate ought to have Trump up by maybe 1.2% or something, just if you were to take all the other polls and divide them up and add them first. But you look at the whole picture with RFK in there, and he's about in line with his national 9.1 support base. He's at a 9.0. In fact, you look at this race, and his lead increases, his as in Donald's, by about 0.6. And so that might actually be clutch in an election where, it might come down to the slightest margin. I don't think it'll get to that, but maybe it will. That being said, we do have Michigan next. Now, Michigan is interesting, of course, because it does have this percolating Arab issue with voting, maybe third party more so than before, these Islamic voters. That being said, I do think that it won't matter either way in the result. As you can see, this aggregate has been peppered with different results. That being observed, let's look into this 0.3 lead and how it changes with RFK on the ballot. It actually leads to a tie vote. Interesting. So you can see that Trump actually is losing support, which is the one state thus far out of like 5 or 6 that has had that sort of thing happen. Now, that's interesting for a couple of different reasons, chief among them being, of course, that a tie vote is super significant as to how these third-party people actually influence the race. Right now, it seems like Kennedy might be hurting Trump because Trump went from winning the state by 0.3 to now tied, which is odd. And again, these results are pretty much in line. These are a very close select amount of polls. And so it's a very tricky thing to see if Trump's going to actually pull it off at this point, the win that is. Now, you look at Kennedy and his support is way beneath standard. In fact, he's at 6.7%, which is really odd to me, Anyway, as you can see, Pennsylvania is super favorable in the aggregate with him winning in every single poll. Trump is up in every single one aside from the bottom one, Fox News, where it's tied. That being said, let's keep going. I think right now we can check to see what Kennedy does to the race. As you can see right now, you'll notice that Kennedy is still underperforming his nominal support base of 9.1%. He's down to 7.4. Not the best. In fact, when you look at it one way, we can see that he increases Trump's support base too, which is to say that for whatever reason, RFK helps in every state but I think maybe Michigan. Of course, that being said, we do have Kennedy's support again being very meager at about 9% at the peak 2 months ago on the basis of the last 4 months prior, by the way. We do have him all the way down to 7.4, which is, again, somewhat just showing a general case of atrophying for him. Remember, folks, when you look at this result here, you can see right now that, first of all, like the video. By the way, you're not excused until you like the video. But let me actually rationalize myself here and why I think RFK doesn't matter. Now, in this race, I don't think he'll play a part into almost any swing state in regards to what the result will be. Again, my logic being that, of course, if RFK had 20% of the vote and Biden wins the state by 0.5 percentage vote, you could really say, oh my God, did he do something here? But I don't think it's even Ross Perot level, okay? I don't think that impact is really there. The bones of it are right here to your right, folks. You look at this and you'll notice Trump is up in all these swing states, aside from a few. These two that I think might actually play into the logic of a third-party candidate being a spoiler, arguably, is going to be the state of Wisconsin, who RFK helps Trump in that case, or 2, Michigan, which for whatever reason hurts Trump a little bit, which is really concerning, if not for the fact that, of course, Trump is leading the race in so many other places that it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. He'd still win regardless, okay? So even if RFK were to spoil it, Trump still wins by 56. So that's a remarkable thing, of course. You look at what I really think is going to happen. It's looking like a 312 to 226. Some things are subject to change. New Hampshire has not really been polled. We're going to see if that gets closer. Also, the polling in Maine is sparse. The polling in the 2nd district, which is suburban and really a battleground district, and an electoral vote in this case, a single one, We're going to see if polling comes in there. But for so far, basically, RFK has been atrophying in a major way. So, in summary, folks, comment down below if you disagree with me. I know there is a niche of Facebook moms that are very pro RFK. And to be honest, I just think it's a fool's errand because the guy is not in the news. He is not really making waves. He is not entertaining to listen to. And granted, I'm a 21-year-old. Maybe I'm not the key demographic. But God, when you're down to single digits, you need every vote you can get. So you know what, RFK? Fix your vocal box. I don't know what the hell it is, but let's get right into it. I'm joking, by the way. He can't fix it. But listen, it's just bad. It's just bad. His prospects are bad. You thought, oh, we're going to get Nicole Shanahan. That didn't change anything, in fact. So we'll see what bearings we have going forward in respect to the election results. I think RFK as a third place finish is pretty much locked in. The question is, are you going to have 20% of the support base like you did at the beginning, or are you going to have maybe 5 or 6 points, which he's been on the slow atrophying case of being there. So it's really rough. I've been really busy, so comment down below any new ideas because I need to get going. See y'all in the next one. Adios.